Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my series, Gabbin with Oof, here on the Oof Fan Entertainment channel on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of you who checked out the first episode of Gabbin with Oof, Gabbin about Captain America, where the MCU is going, what has happened, have we as fans been overhyping the movies and all that. I do appreciate those who've seen it. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out and leave a like, and hopefully you will continue to like what I produce. And again, this channel is all about really just get to know who I am and my love of life and all that. And so, welcome to now to episode 2 of Gabbin with Oof. We're going to be gabbing about one of my all-time favorite movie trilogies in the history of movies of Hollywood itself. And as you see on the shirt on me, we're talking about the trilogy known as Back to the Future. And again, as we go on, please like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be known when more videos are made. On that note, when I decided to finally start my channel, I knew I was going to be making videos, and then I figured, all right, let's make some videos. But then I realized, oh, you need time to make videos. Think about what you're going to talk about. If you have a set, create it, yada, yada. And so if it feels like it's been a while since I made a video, I apologize, but I'm going to try to make more constant videos. Again, topics that come up, people, the things that are trending, things that are coming up. I'm going to hit every subject. I might piss people off. I don't care. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about what I feel, what I like, what's going on around my world, what's going on in our world. And again, hit the comment section, talk about whatever you want. If you agree with what I say, if you disagree, what are your thoughts? So today we're talking about, like I said, Back to the Future. And what can I say about Back to the Future? The reason I'm gabbing about it today is because this year, in the year 2025, Back to the Future will turn 40 years old. Yes, the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future Part 1 being released is this year. July 3rd, 1985 is when it came out, and it literally, no pun intended, made history. And the story, I just love it. So, like I said, we're going to gab about it. I'm going to talk about things I heard in interviews from the cast, from behind the scene features, from the DVDs that I have here, from the VHSs. Yeah, I'm that old school type of guy. And other YouTubers who've done their own research on Back to the Future. And you may learn something, you may know something, but we'll see. Like I said, hit that comment section if I mentioned something you never heard, if you liked it, or if you know something that I don't know. Again, it's an open policy here, open to comment of anything you want. So let's break it all down real fast. So let's gab about it. All right. So the first movie, what can we say about the legendary Back to the Future movie? It stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd as Marty, and Doc Brown. The story is Marty is an 18-year-old high school kid trying to start a band. He hangs out with his good friend, Doc Emmett Brown, and he creates a time machine out of a DeLorean, and he accidentally goes back to 1955. And most importantly, and the dangerous part about it is, he stops his parents from meeting and falling in love, not only destroying his family's future, but most importantly, his own existence. And so that is basically the premises of part one. Marty has to get back to 1985, but before he does that, he has to reunite his parents. They have to meet because he ruined them meeting of the story that his parents told them of how they met and fell in love. Marty ruined it. And so that's basically the premise of the movie. So again, the movie is really, really good. And the main story, and the writer is Bob Gale, when he wrote the script, he came up with it when he was visiting his dad in his parents' house, and he came up with it. He saw his dad's yearbook, and he was like blown away with all the information he learned about his dad when he was in high school. And he asked himself, wow, if I were in high school with my dad at the same age, at the same time, would I be friends with him? And that's a question I want to ponder on all you guys. Let's gab about it in the comments section. If we met our parents at a certain age, let's say in high school age, would we be friends with them? Would we hang out with them? Would we, most importantly, get to really know them? And it's an interesting thought. If I was 18 years old and I met my dad at 18, wow, that'd be really cool. Like, would we get along and all that? But the story is just so simple. And I think that's what made the franchise great, that what it is. Besides the story being so good, the characters, we all fell in love, and we all loved the DeLorean. I just remember watching it as a kid, wanting the DeLorean. I'm also a big Knight Rider fan, so I was into Hollywood cars. Also a big Batman fan, so I had the Batmobile from the '66 movie. Now I had the DeLorean, I had Kit, then the '89 Batman Batmobile. So cars in Hollywood and TV I loved, and I owned like the toy versions of them. So I fell in love with the DeLorean quickly. But the story, like I said, it was great, and the script was awesome. The story was easy to follow, and the music was phenomenal. Shout out to Huey Lewis and the News making all the music for the movie. And again, it's one of those literally classics of Hollywood where you could pop it in, and I'm sure people will stop in their tracks and watch Back to the Future. It has tested the time of the fate of time, and it's still one of the greatest movies ever made. And as years have gone on, the anniversaries, they've been showing them in some theaters to get that feeling of watching it in the cinema. So more on that a little bit later. So we have the awesomeness of Back to the Future 1. And so it was made, it was this global phenomenon, made so much money. Well, again, if you remember the ending of the movie, it ends with Marty bringing Jennifer into the DeLorean with Doc going to the future. And it ended there. And according to Robert Zemeckis, the director, and Bob Gale, one of the writers and producers, they said that that was put there as a joke. They never intended to have to go on. They were like, all right, let's make a movie. They made it. And of course, Hollywood studios go, they see the cha-ching, ching, ching, and they're like, oh, let's make a sequel. So I believe it was Bob Gale who said that it was a little tough writing the script for part two and eventually part three because Jennifer was in the car. So they had to write the story around her, kind of, or at least include her in the following sequels. And on that note, on part one, maybe some of you may or may not know, Eric Stoltz, I believe, sorry, was supposed to play the role of Marty, but something happened that Robert Zemeckis just wasn't feeling it. And they always wanted Michael J. Fox, but at the time, Michael J. Fox was a star of this awesome show called Family Tides on NBC. And so they wanted to get him, but his schedule didn't allow it. But Michael J. Fox loved the script so much that when Eric unfortunately was let go, and then they called back Michael, Michael jumped at it. The poor kid was working in the mornings on Family Ties, and then he was working at night on Back to the Future, and he was getting like 2 hours of sleep. In interviews, Michael J. Fox has said that he loved it. That's what he was born to do, was to act. And so, as much as he was shot by the end of the movie, he was living his dream. And I give props to Michael J. Fox. We're praying for him with how he is doing now. But I give him props for doing that, a TV show in the morning and the movie at night, all those hours. And again, like I said, it's a global phenomenon when it came to that. So, like I said, made all its money back and then some, and so the studios demanded a sequel. So Robert and Bob got together and like, all right, they had to make a script, and well, you have to get back the characters. So Marty was back, Doc was back, Mom was back, Biff was back. The dad was the problem, and so they were talking to him in negotiations. Again, this is from coming from the director and the writer themselves, that they were trying to get him back to do the sequel, but he apparently was asking for a little too much money or a little bit more than what he was worth. And it was a contract dispute that he actually quit. And so that actually inspired the story for part two. So again, let's gab about part two. Part two starts off right where part one ends. Jennifer may look a little bit different, but it starts off right where it ends. Marty is checking out his new car. Doc comes from the future. He takes Jennifer and Marty with him to 2015. Here we are in 2025. I'm talking about a movie based 10 years later of the fact. But we're now in 2015. And so Marty's his son gets in trouble and his daughter as well. And so their plan is to stop a robbery, and they do. But Marty, being Marty, he's thinking with his head and not thinking fourth dimensionally or anything about it. He's not thinking about the consequences of his decisions. In the future, in Long Valley in 2015, he buys this book that has all these sports scores of the past. So Marty uses his head. All right, I'm going to bring information from the future to use in the past for his wealth. But unfortunately, that book gets in the wrong hands of older Biff now, and Biff steals the time machine, goes back to 1955, gives it to his younger self. So when Doc and Marty and Jennifer travel back to 1985, they travel to this alternate 1985 where Biff is corrupt and powerful. He's loaded with money and somehow is married to Marty's mom. And the question is, where's his dad? And we find out that he died. And again, going back to what happened with Kristen Glover, the actor, that's where they came up with the story. Originally, Bob Gale said that the story was going to be based in the 60s. So they did the 50s in part one. They were figuring, let's do the 60s in part two. But they were doing, the story was to get the plutonium, they had to go to a nuclear site, and they just noticed the budget was just out of this world to do it. So they actually did something that I never had seen till that point of movies, was the sequel to a movie went back to the original. So back to the story, they go to this alternate 1985. Doc finds out that Biff has the almanac, the sports almanac that Marty wanted to bring back from the future to his world to make himself rich. Biff took that idea, and so he turned Hill Valley upside down, and so now they had to get the almanac back from Biff and to burn it because they had to actually find out where he got it from to restore their timeline. And again, early MCU here with timeline and all that stuff. So again, Back to the Future, those guys were ahead of their time. So they find out when he got the book, and so it was actually in 1955. So there it is for the first time. Again, I believe we see a sequel going back to its original movie. So they actually go back to 1955. And what's really cool about this part is you see the movie that you just saw. If you saw it in the theaters a couple years ago, you're now seeing part one from a different perspective, a different angle, and it's really cool how they did it. They returned the sets how it was, and of course, all the actors they didn't age that much, so they all still look the same. And so we're now back into 1955, and again, Marty has to get the almanac from Biff. He burns it. The movie ends with Doc getting struck by lightning in the DeLorean because now, since it's in 2015, the DeLorean is flying now, but now he gets zapped away. He gets struck by lightning. And again, just he just happens to send a letter via Western Union that he actually the time circuits got scrambled. He actually traveled back to 1885. So the Marty of the past and the Doc of the past do their thing of part one, and the movie ends with the Marty of 1985 returning to Doc of 1955, needing his help. So real fast about the sequel. I was looking forward to the year 2015. I was excited. We're going to have hoverboards, we're going to have power laces, automatic zip up jackets. I think we got some power laces, but not really. I was looking forward to a Pepsi in a glass bottle, never got it. But again, movies take a chance when it comes to the future. No one knows the future. Only one person does, and he ain't saying anything. So they took a gamble, and it was a cute future. Well, I believe it was Robert Zemeckis that said that they were choosing positivity in the future on mankind. They were saying if mankind behaved from 1985 to 2015, so that's why you see Long Hill Valley looking all nice and it just updated. And again, they were just taking a shot. They knew they were wrong. Everybody who created the movie, who worked on it, said that they knew they were getting it wrong. They were going to take a risk. Would there be flying hoverboards? No, no one knew. So they were like, let's just make fun of this, but in a cute, cool way, which they did. You see the futuristic cars that are flying and all that, the style of clothes and all that's a little crazy. The Jaws 3D or Part 7, whatever. Now it's really, really, really serious or personal. It's so funny. The Cubs win the World Series. Well, it took them a while. And they didn't beat Miami, but it took them a while. And ironically, in 2015, it was the Cubs versus my New York Mets in the NL East Championship. We won, so we stopped the prophecy. So it was cool seeing the future from a director's standpoint. And again, I think it was a better job to do that than going back to the 60s. I don't think it would have had the same feeling and all that. So again, the cool parts about it is this was made in the late 80s. So technology was really young, was really brand new. Michael J. Fox played himself, then he played his older self, he played his daughter, he played his son. And that scene when they're in the kitchen and all three are placed there, I don't really want to call it perfect, but it was practically perfect. And that's one guy, three roles. Obviously, in today we have CG, green screen, computer, and all that jazz, which again, nothing wrong with it. But we're talking late 80s, and how they did that is nothing but a miracle. Avalon Entertainment, Steven Spielberg, shout out to one of the greatest producer directors of all time. And a couple years after he made Back to the Future Part 2 and 3, he made another classic, Jurassic Park. So Steven Spielberg, tip my hat that I don't have on. So again, it was ahead of its time when it came to technology, and I think they nailed it perfectly. They were trying things. It was a risk. It's like this is either going to work or it's not, and I think it worked perfectly. So we have the sequel, and so the movie ends with Marty catching Doc on the floor because he fainted because he thought he sent Marty away, but he's back. And again, another first for the first time, and we're used to it nowadays, like I mentioned earlier with the Marvel movies, where you're used to mid credits and end credit scenes and all that. And I believe it was at the end of Captain America: First Avenger, you see a full trailer for the next movie of the Avengers, a nice, awesome trailer. I don't know if it was the official trailer, but you saw a trailer. And so at the end of part two of Back to the Future, it shows to be concluded. So you know there's a part three coming. And then you're given about almost like a 30-second trailer of part three. They recorded part two and three at the exact same time as they were doing working behind the scenes on part two. They were filming part three and then vice versa. And again, the props to the studio, and they did that too, I believe, for Infinity War and Endgame, where they were recording it at the exact same time. And but again, though, we now have CGI and computers that can digitally edit things in lightning fast, no pun intended. But and so we're talking the late 80s here, early 90s, and they did this in the seat of their pants. And again, part two, a really good sequel. And I still think the first one was better, but the part two was just, it was a new chapter to it. So moving on to part three, they go back to 1885, and a lot of people look down upon that. I don't know why, but it's cool. You see 85, the present, you see the future, you see the past. Now let's go even more to the past. It would be weird, but like we're in the year 2105. Like what? No, they went back to a simple time, 1885, where the planet Earth was the effects. The planet Earth was the props and the equipment and all that. They found a mountain range in California, and they literally built the city of Hill Valley there. And you see the genesis of Hill Valley. And what's cool about it is, if you're a fan of the movies, you Hill Valley's a character as well, just like Marty and Doc. So it's cool. You see how Hill Valley changes from 85 to 2015 to the fake 85, how it was in 1955. And then you see its genesis around the 1800s. I really don't know when Hill Valley was officially created, but you see the creation of it. So it was cool to see that progression. And one thing of the movie that's shocking is that Doc falls in love. He has a love interest. But now in this movie, Marty travels back to save Doc because he's going to get shocked by Biff's ancestors. But the problem is he busts the fuel line in the car, and we know there were no gasolines, let alone cars back then. So now the mystery of how are they going to move the car to get back to the future. He also had to save Doc's life, and so that's the dilemma Marty is now facing. Every movie, it seems like he's always facing a dilemma. And so this is Doc's movie. It's all about him. It's all about him fighting his heart and his mind. Does he helps Marty, but does he return to the future? Does he stay in the past with Clara, his love interest? That's the whole thing now. And the way they came up with it was cool. They're like they can't pull it. Horses aren't that fast. The car's too heavy. It can't run on its own power. But all right, what about pushing it? And so we have the locomotive. And again, Doc is literally a genius. So he creates a way to get that fire really hot to make the train really fly to get the car to 88 miles an hour. Something introduced in part two, and it's in part three. All of a sudden, Marty has a temper. I really didn't have a problem with that. It was all right. It was just interesting how it's like you call him chicken in 2015, you call him chicken in 1985 at the end of part three, but you call him yellow in 1885. So it's just the lingo. That's another thing what's hilarious. Marty is a kid from the 1980s in 1885, and so he sees the frisbee disc for the pie. He says far out. He shoots a real gun, but he remembers the arcade, and he's good at it. It's just seeing him in a different time. It's just really 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 funny. Even it's kind of cool in the past when he went to 1955. He couldn't even open the Pepsi bottle for the soda machine, and his dad does it. So you just see the differences of like how would you act if I was a kid in 1985. How would I act in 2015, 1955, let alone 18? Even now in 2025, how would I act in 1885? Like, I'd be so out of my comfort zone. Not much to talk about in the movie, except the train was a real train, but anytime you see the train exploding and going off the cliff and all that, those were miniatures. And so again, we think of George Lucas with Star Wars, and now we think of Steven Spielberg with miniatures working on it. And again, it looked authentic to me. I thought that was a real train that blew up off a cliff. Nope, miniatures and all that. And the movie ends in a perfect way. Marty returns to 1985. He's with Jennifer. Doc returns. He converted the train into a time machine because it's Doc. He's married, has two kids. And you put a nice little bow on the movies. And again, not that many people really like part three. I think it's the whole Western thing. But again, where else were they going to go? I thought it was just a perfect ending to a great trilogy. So, like I said, overall, a wonderful trilogy that I had a great part one, really good part two, and I thought a satisfying conclusion. And at the end, it was beautiful seeing the words "the end." And so, like I said, as no pun intended, as time goes on, they've been re-airing this movie. In 2015, shout out to my boy Arby. What up, Arby? We went to the local AMC around here and we actually saw all three movies consecutively in the theaters, 6+ hours in the theater. And wow, that was rough. Again, I know the MCU did it, Marvel did it for the MCU leading up to Infinity War, where you could see all of them of like a 12-hour thing or something like that. Well, we only did six. It was three movies or about 2 hours long each, and we did it. We saw part one, two, and three consecutively. And it was cool to see one of my all-time favorite movies on the big screen. Surround sound in a theater was really cool. It's great watching it at home with your own surround sound and your couch and all that. But seeing these classics in the theater is really cool. And I'm glad studios are doing that. So not only have I seen Back to the Future in the theater as a reintroduction, I was there in 1997 when the original Star Wars trilogies went back to the theaters, which was really cool in the year 97. I also saw Jurassic Park at the Lowe's Theater here in New Jersey, in Jersey City, and they showed the original reel. So it wasn't a new digital version of it. It was the actual real movie. You saw the spinning thing behind you and behind you, and that was really cool. I saw Ghostbusters as well. So I hope studios do this when there's anniversaries. And of course, I saw Batman '89, and that not only in the theater, but I saw it live in concert. We'll talk about him later on. But to Hollywood and all these to this nostalgia that they know they can make money off of, which again, there's nothing wrong with it. I say please do it. Please bring back the classics. Bring them back, especially those classics that people like me didn't see, didn't get to see in the theater, or was just way before my time. But it's cool to see the classics in the theaters, show them how it was when they debuted, when they premiered. Like I get excited when I went to go see Captain America the night it premiered, and I went to a bunch of MCU movies when they premiered as well. That excitement is there to see it on the silver screen. It was really cool. So I hope Hollywood production companies continue to do that when an anniversary comes up, or just to like, hey, it's been a while since this movie's been in the theater. Show it again. I know they're doing that with some of the somewhat new movies. That's cool and all that, because if you missed your chance, go see it now. But bring back some of the old school ones from the even the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, even the 70s. Go back all the way to the history of music, of movies. Bring them back and let's see them in the theater how it was presented when it debuted. Yeah, you got 4K, HD, ultrasound. That doesn't bother me, but to be in a theater to see these movies is really, really awesome. To add more on the awesomeness of what Back to the Future is, I also had the honor of watching Back to the Future, the musical, in New York City in Times Square in Broadway in the old Winter Garden Theater. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was sitting there waiting for the show to begin, I had the Cats in my head. That's where Cats used to be so many years. And rumor has it the Back to the Future the musical ended. I cannot confirm or deny it, but if it's around, I say go see it. They did a great job working on it. How they had to tweak a little things. They couldn't do everything from the movie in the musical. I don't know if it had rights or anything to do with it, but the way they did the movie was the musical from the movie was really, really good. Seeing the DeLorean on a stage on a musical stage was so cool. The actors were great. All the songs were there. Power of Love was one of them. Back in Time is definitely in there. They actually created the theme song. They put lyrics to that tells the story as the musical is going on. So that was really good. They did a wonderful job in the production. So if Back to the Future is still around in New York, I say go see it. If they're doing a traveling show, I say go see it. It's just really, really great, phenomenal job they did with there. So again, so Back to the Future, to Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gill, to all the actors, producers, anybody with music and talent and anything in the movie, on behalf of a diehard, call me a Mark if you want, a Mark diehard fan of this franchise, I say thank you so much. Happy early 40th anniversary. It's in the summer when you hit the big 4-0. But thank you so much for giving us this gift that is Back to the Future. This movie, this franchise is literally history in the making. It made history and it's a classic. And it's fine you call it a classic. I think it's a treasure. It's just a great trilogy. If you told me if you could only keep one of the three in your catalog and watch it forever and never watch any of the other three, of the three, which one would you hold dearly? I would say part one. It's the one that started it all. When it comes to trilogies and franchises, this one set the bar pretty high, and the other two did great. I love part two and three. I don't dog it as much as others do. Again, comment below which one's your favorite. Mine is part one, the original Back to the Future part one, and what have you heard about that? And on that note, something's been picking up in social media that I'm not liking. Apparently, some petitions and some boards online and stuff like that are people discussing bringing it back or a part four, either a reboot or a part four, and I say no to either one. I get it. You've seen it, I've seen it. Hollywood is very, very unoriginal these days. Eh. Reboots left, right, up, down, BA, select, start, whatever. I get it. Leave Back to the Future alone. Let the DeLorean rest. Let Marty and Doc rest. Let them rest literally in history. The franchise, the trilogy is great the way it is. Leave it alone. I don't want to hear remake. I don't want to hear redo. I don't want to. And the last thing, probably of all of them, the most I don't want to hear is part four. I don't need to know where the characters are. The characters are where the movie ended. Doc is with his family, traveling the world, time literally. Marty and Jennifer are together. Let it go. Fine, it's okay. I don't need to see an updated version. I've seen the reunions they've been doing left and right at cons and all that. I went to New York Comic Con in 2015. I don't remember if it was before or after the movies, watch them in the theater, but I went there. I saw the DeLorean. I've seen the DeLorean in cons everywhere I go. They had a guy dressed as Marty and Doc there. I took a photo with them. They had some of the stuff from the movies. They had the Wild Gunman game. They had the Pepsi bottle that I tried to buy, but they ran out of them. They're now like $50 billion on eBay. They had the Power Lace shoes, the jacket. They had it all there, and it was cool to sit in there. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is what they should do. Take it around and show it. Again, it's the 40th anniversary. Do cons like Back to the Future Con or something like that, or DeLorean Con. I don't know if DeLorean allows it, but do that kind of stuff and have the original cast and crew there that made the movie. It brought a smile to my face and to many of you guys as well. So yes, do that. Bring a nostalgic tour that is fine, but absolutely no to either a sequel or a reboot. It's perfectly fine the way it is. So again, let me know what you guys think of Back to the Future. I'm sure you've seen Back to the Future. Let me know which one's your favorite, which one you don't like. Why do you rank it? Rank the three of them. I would rank them the way they are, one, two, and three. And again, I'm not dogging part three. It's just I just prefer part one. Part two is a very good sequel, and part three is a nice little bow. But as far as like my want to see it or love of it, it's one, two, and three in that order. And I could just, if you told me pick only one to have only for the rest of your life, I would pick part one because it's just a great story. It's a great, wonderful beginning, and I know how it ends and all that. So again, let me know in the comment section what y'all think about Back to the Future. Which one is your favorite? Which one is your least? What are your thoughts? Should there be a sequel? Should there be a reboot? Has Hollywood gotten out of control with reboots? Should they touch this franchise, this awesome franchise that is perfect the way it is? Should they continue? Should they add to it? Should it be other stories of it? Let me know in the comment section. Again, if you like what you saw, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button with that notification bell. I'll be popping out more videos as more subjects come into my brain as I try to come up with props to talk about what I'm talking about to give you guys a heads up and all that. I'll be recording some shorts as well, just to show you a little bit of my studio here and all that. I'm blocking a bookcase that has my championship title belts. I've been asked like what's behind you or what's below you actually because you can only it's 5 levels, but you can only see 2 of them. So I'll do a quick short video to put on my shorts to show you what belts I have. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thank you for being patient. I will try to pop more videos out here. Again, I'm just getting slowly learning this whole thing with YouTube, and I'm trying to edit. I'm trying to do everything in one take. I'll add little special effects here and there that I'm trying to learn real fast. But other than that, please take good care of yourself, everybody around you. Please know that from the mighty words of Dr. Emmett Brown, the future is not written yet. So make it a good one, all of you. And of course, as always, God bless.